but I'm sure you are aware. Before I get there, my name is. Oh, oh, is my mind good? Okay, cool. Um, my name is Tsidi Ruson Sitebe. Um, I'm sure you've been made aware of Katleho that he will not be joining us, but we do have Mr. Lincoln Mali, which I think is a very special guest. He told me not to do the professional LinkedIn intro, so I will not. I will do the intro of the Lincoln I know and work with. It's very short. So, Lincoln, in my experience, is a compassionate leader. He leads with heart. And what do I mean about this? I find this very fascinating, actually. Lincoln knows everybody in the building that we work for, everyone, the security guard, the cleaners, the staff that works at the cafeteria. He knows them by name, he knows their stories, and he will go and check up on them. That's what a leader that leads with heart does. But also, something really, really amazing about Lincoln is he's the type of leader who gets dirty. When I say get dirty, I mean he gets his hands dirty. So he will have a strategy and he knows exactly what he wants the team to buy into. So he'll show you. He's the type of leader who doesn't believe in working in the offices. He actually goes to where the staff are. I've seen Lincoln open an account for a customer. I'm just saying. I've seen him sell our products to customers and explain them, and you would never say. And when we do go to these areas, people are often shocked. They're like, "This is your CEO. We wouldn't have known." So that's the type of person he is. I think now what we will do is play a video because this masterclass is going to be slightly different. We will play a video. I will ask Lincoln one or two questions. Then I'll hand over to you to ask him questions. Cool. Can you please play the video?
Do you have hope for South Africa
Yes.
and leaders of the future?
I have amazing hope for this country. I've seen this country when it was dark, when we couldn't go from one part of the township to the next because there was an army, when we had to bury people daily, when there were massacres. Of course, the country is nowhere near where it should be. We, my generation, did not take the baton from the Albertina Sisulus of this world and make this country better. We've squandered that opportunity. My hope lies with the next generation. When I speak to young people, I see what they see. They are like how I felt when I was young. My job and others is to give them the space, give them the support so that they can take this country to the next level. This country will only succeed if its riches are shared with a broader population. Its flag will fly higher when more people pay allegiance to it. Its rainbow nation will be better if everybody see themselves and their color in that nation. But if we leave people behind, South Africa will not succeed. So it's not going to be easy. But what is required is for South Africans not to be spectators. For South Africans not to want to solve everything. Solve the things you can solve that are in your sphere of influence. People will say, there's a problem of corruption, but their friend is corrupt, and they went to a party of their friend who's corrupt, but they're talking about corruption. Somebody will say, there's nothing for our schools, but I'm spending 30,000 rands in a club, but I can't spare 10 rands to the school where I studied. Somebody will buy 16 cars, but there's no money to give to the school for a bursary where you studied. Those are the building blocks. Let's not go for the exciting things. And everybody says, no, the way to solve this is every one of you, Lincoln, you guys must go back to politics. The people in politics must do politics. People like me have chosen a path.
Yeah.
My path is I'm in business, and in business, I want to focus on the informal market. I want to focus on financial inclusion. That's what I do. When I'm not at work, I must build a family and raise my kids and my broader family.
Yeah.
And thirdly, I must plow back into the community. These are the things I can control. Rather saying we want to do everything and we end up doing nothing. That's
I
my.
hear you.
So let's not say, is there hope for South Africa? Is there hope for your street? Is there hope for your school? Is there hope for your community, your family? Let's hold each other accountable about the things we can do. Then, of course, we must hold the politicians and others accountable.
Yeah.
But I think most of the time we want to focus on them. There's going to be an election. Everybody's excited. After the election, then what? Then what? For another 5 years, you don't want to do anything? Your school is collapsing next door. Your church is dilapidated. Your kids are on drugs, right? Your son is involved in GBV. These are the real things.
Yeah.
If we can focus on those things, and every one of us focus on those things as a society, will become better. Just like how the country was liberated. I know there are a lot of people who walk around and say they liberated the country. The country was liberated by millions of people by doing small acts of defiance. Imagine if we do small acts of kindness, small acts of accountability, small acts of building. That's what I learned from my father. My father came when the schools were burnt.
Yes.
He went to the parents and says, let's rebuild the schools. The parents said, no. The department must do it. He went to the department knows the students.
You bent it yourself.
My father said, let's fundraise and let's build schools. And they built schools called, the thing called Vusisizwe.
Yes.
So it's the things we do, right? The program you run here is your contribution. Do that to the best of your ability. Somebody else has another thing they're passionate about, they must do that. Then we're okay.
Sure.
Okay.
It's the things we do. That's very powerful. But before I get to the questions I've written down here, Lincoln refers to everyone as leadership. He is leadership. I am leadership. You are all leadership. I need to know, my leader, what does that mean to you? Because that's a very powerful word, especially coming from a leader, a CEO, saying to everybody, leadership.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. As I said, I'm a replacement. I was texting Katlego and so he'll be here next year. Okay, some of you might be facilitators because he's not feeling well, but an incredible person who would have told the Yoko story. But yeah, I'll try and be a substitute. Leadership is not a title held, right? It's the impact. So I see a leader in everybody. So when I say my leader, I say to them, I see you and the potential you have to lead or make an impact. And in that way, I try and turn the thing on its head because all these people who call themselves leaders, they want to be served. Leadership is about serving. It's about doing something bigger than yourself. So I see now all these people running around and calling themselves leaders. If there's a funeral, they must sit in front. If they're eating, they must eat alone on this. And all of those stupid things. That's not leadership. So my view is I see the leader in you. So when I say my leader, I'm already saying to you, take it, run with it, lead. And that's the way I try and, I like disruption, so that's the way I'm disrupting the thing. And it's worse when you got these titles. People are like, you're the CEO. Titles are for beer bottles. My name is Lincoln or Lincoln, depending which school you went to. That is me. If I'm fired by Lesaka, I'll be Lincoln. But these things where people, DDG, deputy minister, CEO, like what is that nonsense? So I see the leader in everybody. That's why I use that thing.
Very powerful. This comes from your book. You say young leaders should be the midwives of Africa's rebirth. And I think it speaks to what you said in your video that, Africa needs us as leaders, young leaders. We must take that baton on. So what advice would you give the young leaders in this room in terms of the rebirth of Africa?
Prof at the beginning said, what's going to happen at the end of this? Yes, you'll boast you were in this thing. Then what? Because in some of the questions you guys ask, you try and ask a lot of specifics and practical things. That's nice. But whatever answer I give is out of context because I don't know your context. You must take that question, whatever answer I give, then you must bring it to your context. Some of the people that were here in previous whatever have done things in their context. People have opened libraries in a village because that's in their context. Somebody has started a program to mentor girls in their context. Somebody has focused on sanitation in schools. So it's in your context. That's how we become midwives to Africa's rebirth. It's not going to come from somebody else. Hashtag no one is coming. We are it. We are it. If we can't do these things, what do we expect? Who are we expecting to come? Nobody is coming. So that's why for me, the challenge is what does each and every one of us do in our environments? What am I going to do in my family? What am I going to do in my street, in my community? That's the thing that's going to make us accountable. It's in your environment, right? I mean, I see Becky here. He was in his class, and I wish I was a fly on the wall. Mteto Nyati and I have been, friends, been like an older brother for many years. And one day he writes, we were asked to speak at the Vets Business School. And then he talks about people who sacrifice and do great things in the country. So he mentions gift of the givers, and everybody applauds. He mentions the public protector at the time, everybody applauds. Then he says the people at ESCOM, and everybody's another time he didn't work for ESCOM. And he says, it's because you want people who are not going to tell you the truth. He said, imagine the people that all just decided to leave after all the insults you give them. He says, who's going to fix ESCOM? Somebody is to go and fix ESCOM. So things happen. He ends up now becoming the chairman of ESCOM, which means he has to accept, after everything is done in his career, to go and take on the challenge of leading ESCOM. Then some of the teams achieved something. He writes on LinkedIn, well, the people came for him, attacked him. Now, because I was involved in a restructure or a turnaround at Lesaka, I could relate to what he was saying because that turnaround needed people. And when they score points, you have to say, well done, right? So I said, I support you. Okay, they also came for me, but that's fine. I then wrote to him and I said, Mteto, I'm not an engineer. I don't know what I can do with ESCOM. But if I can offer one thing, is to help with the people, because that's all I know in life is people. So he says, I'll connect you with Becky. Becky and I didn't know a bar of soap. Becky invited me. He runs all the power plants. And there was a room of about 30 people who run the power plants of ESCOM. It was in the darkest times. Even the people that, when I was going there, people were laughing at me to say, yes, give our address so that they don't turn us off. But I went there to join Becky's team at that dark moment, and we had a conversation. It meant to be 45 minutes, and I've been 20 minutes. We were talking about their journey. When they finished having 100 days, I had the honor of them inviting me back. I was part of their journey. That was their task. If they had not worked on what they did at ESCOM, everybody would have been spectators. What are you doing, ESCOM? But somebody has to do it. Either they'll fail or succeed, but they are in the arena. Somebody makes a choice to make a difference. He had been kicked out of ESCOM during those difficult times. Bheki had to accept to go back to ESCOM and take that part that was the most difficult at ESCOM. So the thing for me is not sitting on the outside and chirp. What are you willing to do? What are you willing to sacrifice? Just like when I went to Net One, Lesaka then. So he was interviewed sometime, Kaya, and then he says, "Yo, I never why would Lincoln leave Standard Bank to go to that place?" But again, if I'm not going, who's going to go? So it's the choices we make.
Questions, and then over to you guys, and you'll have enough time, about 30 minutes, to ask your questions. My second last question to you is: how important is challenging the status quo?
Hey, I get doing it all. Um, if you're if you're not uncomfortable with the status quo, it's very difficult for you to lead. If you don't, because you're not what it can be. You accept everything as given, right? So one day when we tell the Lesaka story, we had to do everything in a company in the shortest possible time because we're uncomfortable with where the company is. If we hadn't acted, the company would have died. So it meant being uncomfortable almost completely. And one of the biggest things we were uncomfortable about was to say, how is it okay that grant beneficiaries cannot use the payment system of this country? How is it okay that people can be paid their grant in the streets, in an open flat? Where's the dignity in that? Just imagine in your companies, if everybody says at payday, hey, we'll all meet you at the parking lot. We'll pay you at the parking lot. When there's a payment system of the country, within a 3-year period, I can tell you now, probably 70% of the population of grant beneficiaries are now being paid through the payment system. Like, why was that okay that it's not happening? So you challenge the status quo, right? We challenge the status quo on what do you call BE deals, right? Normal BE deals, the most senior black people get the most shares, right? So that's what happened. So we said, no one who's senior who gets shares is going to get shares on our ESOP. The shares will be for everybody, not the leaders. Again, you challenge the status quo. Then we said, actually, we are like 92% black in the company. So we're going to give everybody, including white people, because it's 30 years into democracy. Because how are you saying in democracy, I'm going to give shares to these two and you're not getting, right? Now, it made sense 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Doesn't make sense 30. And then we said, everybody's going to get the same shares. Our employees now, when you see them, they walk around like, we're shareholders. We're shareholders. Again, it's challenging the status quo on a range of things, right? So I think for me, the way we're going to bring about change is you got to challenge the status quo. But you got to have the courage of a conviction that the status quo is going to push back. You can't throw the first punch and then the second punch come and you're complaining because you're challenging the status quo. So challenge is part of life. I get challenged in my family. My kids are here. They are rebel rousers. They are rebels. The things they're challenging me on, my father didn't have to deal with. My mom didn't have to deal with that. I have to deal with their life and their realities. And I don't have the answers. And I have to figure out what it means. They are challenging the status quo of a family. They are challenging the status quo of how they can have relationships. So they can come with a boyfriend or a girlfriend and chill with the boyfriend and the girlfriend. And I'm here. I'm like, okay. And my daughter will say, I'm going with my boyfriend, and they're going to sit at the back, and we're going to drive from East London to Mthatha, and they're sitting at the back, and I cannot look at the rearview mirror the whole time. And if there's any twitching and I'm turning a corner, I have to deal with that, right? So nobody prepared me for that, right? So status quo is a very different thing. You can challenge it, but understand that others are challenging. You are the status quo for others. I'll finish off with a point where CD had only been working with us for, I think, 6 months. And there was something she was not happy with. And she wrote us an email, myself and Chris Meyer, and said, I need to talk. Who makes these kinds of stupid decisions? And she demanded a meeting, and she dealt with me. And after I'd been dealt with, Chris says, do you have any clue? I'm like, no, you must deal with yourself. After she dealt him, Tim is like, yo, we were very stupid. But again, she was challenging the status quo, right? Another thing where she challenged the status quo is we deal with social grant beneficiaries, which is child grant, old age grant, veterans grant, disability grant. And she says, why are we still having this green card? We're going to make the card black because our clients got to feel that they have a card. So now I'm thinking, yeah, but what if Abogogo cannot take this green card? Hi, I opposed. Hi. CD went to every other person, persuaded them. Now I'm standing alone. I don't agree with this thing. Everybody says, yeah, we don't agree with you. CD is right and you're wrong. All the cards are now black, except for those cards of us who have not changed them. I'm still keeping my green. But CD won,
wow.
and she was right. CD wanted us to deal with stock fells. We were not ready. And she showed us, this is the future. This is what Stockfell does. Now she's working on a digital Stockfell thing and whatever. So challenging the status quo has no guarantees. You're not going to get a safety net. You don't know how it's going to end. But if your courage of your convictions is strong and there's a fire in your belly, you are going to challenge the status quo. So yeah.
Sure, powerful. I think what you're saying, if I may play back some of it, is that it's okay for you to challenge the status quo, but in some instances, you will be challenged as well. Also, do it while fearful, is what I'm understanding. And it may be difficult, but the results may pay off, as we are seeing now with the former Netwan, now Lesaka. It's such a wonderful place to work. 3 years ago, it was, sure, I can't even mention, but it was something else. And my last question about organizations, actually, you were at Standard Bank prior to joining Lesaka, and you did something. You wanted to go into the regions, another challenge, and you wanted to do something completely different because you had a belief. You went into Pretoria and Johannesburg, and these were referred to as different provinces at, at, at the time in that group. And you said, why? This is Gauteng. And I have a vision for Gauteng, and I think the way that they are doing things is incorrect. I think we can challenge this, and I think we need to uplift our people. So, when you went into that position and you were changing things, how important was it for you to trust yourself and build trust in those that you were going to lead into uncharted territories?
You did say that embrace the fear. When you're going through changes, it's not as if you've got everything figured out. You are scared. You are fearful yourself. You've got doubts yourself. But again, test what it is that you're trying to do. Keep you asking yourself whether you're right. You're not drinking your own Kool-Aid, right? Be vulnerable. Work through those things and accept that there are going to be dark times. So again, in these first 2 years of these 4 years, maybe first 18 months at Lesaka, there were times I would drive home and park at a garage. Right? What's that? The petrol station. Like I just call it garage and my kids will cringe. Okay, service station or petrol station. But I go park because a garage you can park and people don't see what you've done. So I can park there and deal with my emotions and cry because it's hard. It's painful. It is difficult. Then when I get home, how was your day? Oh, great. Because I can't bring the gumph from work to home. Similarly, when my I've had a few words with my wife and she has a few paragraphs with me. I can't bring that to work. So my drama to be in the car so that I don't show all of to the others. So during all of this, there's a lot of things you work on. And sometimes you get it wrong. So in that Gauteng example, there were people we needed to move from Pretoria to Joburg. And we worked on all of the numbers. And we told the people through all their pain. And then one afternoon, our FD said, actually, the numbers are. So we had two choices. One choice is to double down and keep going because we are the leaders, or be vulnerable to say we got it wrong. And we organized a meeting. We drove to Pretoria and asked for a meeting, and we told the staff we were wrong. And they had told their families and everything. It was a traumatic meeting. Yet, that very afternoon, those staff members called us after giving us grief. That meeting was, they took us to the cleaners. But that afternoon, they called us and said, we thank you for being honest. You got it wrong, we'll forgive you. So in all of these changes, it's not that everything is figured out. It's not as if every choice you're making or decision you're making is right? You got to embrace that because it's life. There are things you're going to get right, the things you're going to get wrong. So these massive changes bring a lot of trauma to people. They have a lot of trauma to an organization. You have to understand that you're taking that journey in that way.
Thank you. So, in essence, to sum that up, is that you need to be open with people, admit when you are wrong, because that will help people, individuals, in trusting you as a leader. But also, it's important for you to manage your emotions and reaffirm the direction that you are going in. Okay, that's it for my questions. Over to you guys.
So the best way, let's make it like quick. So it's quick questions, I answer so that we can get as many as possible.
Okay. Hi, sir. Toso Zulu. My question or statement first. I really like the titles of for beer bottles, part of it, and I'm just curious around that idea of so you have a generation of people who've been raised at that qualification. You get that position, you've made it, and so they go around with this sense of wanting to be affirmed. So how have you, as a leader, sort of surpassed that? And what advice would you give to us to guard against that as we ascend in our careers?
Yeah. Firstly, I was fortunate to have a father who thought very differently. He didn't believe in this. My father would involve me in every conversation to eat everything. So it helped me not to. My father detested in positions and always say in the Xhosa language, "Ungathandi isihlalo nemali." So I never really had this thing about titles and whatever. So it never really appealed to me. And then last and most importantly, command and control cannot work in today's generation. It cannot work because they ask why, how. And by the time you say something, they've already Googled it. They already know it. So if you think you'll come with a position, it's not going to work. So all the time, I always engage with young people in my company. Some of the people I work with, I see there. She was a young grad at the time. But again, I grow from learning from those people, hearing them and their insights and everything. So I just think that those people who think that their titles and positions are making them to be leaders, unfortunately, they're not leading anybody. They're just taking a straw, right? Trust is earned. Respect is earned. Leadership itself is earned, right? I am not a father to my kids because biologically I'm their father. I'm a father because they decide and think that I am worthy to be their father. But if I only relate to them on the fact that I'm their father biologically, yeah, it's going to be a disaster. So similarly with leaders, you have to contribute something so that people can feel that, we didn't choose this bugger as our leader, but he's not bad. So that's what I would say.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Ratanang Matebula. I work for the public sector. I joined more than 10 years ago. And when I joined, I really wanted to challenge the status quo. And I remember getting a phone call and being told that I need to choose my battles because I was looking at the governance arrangement for this one public entity. And the only thing in the CV was a picture of that person. I wanted to know how do they get hired with just mainly a picture. And then I got a phone call saying that I need to choose my battle. 10 years later in the game, I find that young people are not really being absorbed in the public sector. Even when I sit in panels where we get to interview them, you'd find without really, I hope this won't be shared because I don't want to get into trouble.
Don't give names.
Yeah, that you find I'll be so excited when I see a young person who has studied at a particular university that this is going to bring change, and they'll be like, no, they'll come here with their English, stuff like that, and you find that now we are not observing the necessary skill, and now public sector is now left with the older generation, and the young generation that is there is just desperate for work, not really motivated to do any good. So how does one being in the space for so long sort of bring change? Because now I find that I become part of the stats. As much as when I started I had the zeal and the energy and all that, I find myself now having an MBA wanting to leave instead of saying, actually public sector paid. I only paid for my undergrad. All my postgraduates, 3 of them were paid by the public sector. Why do I want to leave? Why can't I give back? And it's difficult to do that under the circumstances. Thanks.
There's an amazing change that's happening. YouTube now has become a big medium of watching the public sector self-mutilate. If you watch those parliamentary hearings, yes, some of those people doing that nonsense are being embarrassed because they sit with huge vacancies. And people ask, why have you not employed? Because they're using things that have got nothing to do with the competences needed to hire. And that's why after 3-4 years, the post has not been filled. So people have caught on to this nonsense of people trying to be blockers, right? I know in my career, when people gossip about me, they say, that Lincoln, he's not that good, that guy. He just surrounds himself with good people. Like, duh! Like, why would I go and hire somebody more doff than me? Right? So I'm gonna pick on Lusanda. So I was worried, I thought she was going. So Lusanda is an engineer, right? She passed cum laude, honors, masters, thingamabob, right? All the way to Oxford. And then she spoke out in an entity where there was corruption. And this one was the private sector. And they kicked her out, fired her. She was not employed for 2 years. And then when we started, we were looking for some of our projects as we started the Lesaka journey or whatever. And then I see a CV. I was like, yo. Like, leaders have to be talent magnets. Like, when you see a CV, you're going to be like, wow. You can't lead if you are competing with your people or you're jealous with your people. You've got to be like, do you understand what I'm saying? So that's why those people, they are going to be blown out of the water because the people caught on to it. There's been embarrassing things happening already in those interviews. When the people who are speaking, you're like, how did you hire yourself? When you say there's no talent, why are you hiring yourself? right?
Yeah.
Quality people surround themselves with quality people, right? So, like, when I sit here, I look at the people I work with. That's the Lesaka ones. Just the friends, the Lesaka ones. Like, they keep them raised. Like, they, I know they're fire. Like, I know it. Do you understand me? And I know that if I don't get my act together, they'll challenge me. These ones will challenge me. That's the thing. I want to be surrounded by talented people, brilliant people. I mean, just before 10 o'clock on, when was it, Thursday? Zoe was busy finalizing the bank zero thing. When it's a picture, it's my picture there, link on the bank board, bank zero. I didn't work on the deal. No, the other people worked on the deal. Am I making sense?
Yes.
Right? So you have to make a decision that says, is where you are the full public sector? Or is, if you still want to stay in the public sector, are there other areas in the public sector where your skill, your talent, your passion can be recognized?
Yes.
But don't stay in a relationship that's not working because you're not adding value. You are being frustrated. But those people, their time will come. People who are gods of the earth get exposed sometime.
Yes.
But there are places. That's why I'm giving this example. You know the number of people from ESCOM who are now walking with a different step because Bomteto, Bobeki came and said, we're going to change the environment. They've not completed. There's still a long way to go. But they restored the faith of people there, hired the right people. There were wrong people that were hired there in those 10 years or whatever. The right people were being hired. So all I'm saying is that, again, at the end of this, you've got to go and do a workshop with yourself that says, where can I be of value? If that place where you are, you can fight for change if it's possible. But if it's not, have an honest discussion with yourself that says, actually, maybe not here. But there are other parts in the public service where you can do great good. Does that make sense? Great stuff.
High leadership.
Yeah, my leader.
My question is focused around failure, especially as a leader. I feel like it's great being a leader when things are successful. But when you're a leader and you fail, what is your response? Because I feel like a lot of people in this room, we will fail. Failure is inevitable in life. But I feel like as youth, when we stumble, whether it be in the beginning of your career, the middle of career, there can be a part of you that's like, actually, I don't really care anymore. I'm going to go work at this place for the next 12 years, live my life, and not contribute their full potential. What is your response as a leader to failure without it disrupting your potential?
Biggest thing is introspection. You have to own. The worst thing as a person to do is that you are going right when if you are not having honest conversations, you will not accept failure and learn from it. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of failure, right? After I speak about. The first one was, I did speak about the one from Pretoria. Let me pick others. So one was, I wanted to do something, and I wanted Standard Bank go into the mass market, to go and do things. We went to townships and villages, opened up, and we grew the business in the most spectacular way. But the people in risk were saying that those accounts were not KYC compliant. And I was arguing that their definition of KYC was wrong because it was restricting financial inclusion. And how could that be okay? Because we've got to allow financial inclusion. So I fought with them. We opened 1 million customers. And then the Reserve Bank came, so those accounts not KYC compliant, those accounts were closed. The issue here was, although intellectually I was right, it was ahead of the time. Because the law as interpreted then was that. So those accounts were closed. 3-4 years later, Time Bank convinced the regulator that it must be a risk-based approach. And now you can open an account in a retailer by going to a kiosk and whatever. So there are times where you may be right, but you may be wrong. So there I failed the people because I used what I thought. That was failure. Second big failure was I was leading, one of the things I did at Standard Bank was lead Standard Bank's low income proposition, because I've always had this passion for financial inclusion. That's why Ali and I we connect. Okay, his MIPS are he's super clever, but we get it. So, but I wanted now Standard Bank to go to the next level. But I could not persuade Standard Bank to move to the next level. I failed. And I was so angry. What they did was to promote me to go to Gauteng. At the time, I didn't want to go to Gauteng. I wanted just to drive financial inclusion. And out of my anger, I registered here for an MBA. And my thesis was on financial inclusion. And I wrote that it is possible to give financial inclusion and be profitable. And my article or thesis was called Banking at the Margins. And I was describing how it could be done. At the time, there was a small little company which name started with a C, followed by an A, followed by a P. And today, 23 million customers, right? What's the beauty about writing is that nobody can dismiss that I told them because it's written in my thesis, right? But I had failed, right? The last big failure, and I'm see, okay, she's here. Okay, the last big failure was I was flying in the corporate sector. I was like promotions, like everything. When you do wrong, it's because there's something you like, then it becomes your drug that makes you not see that you're doing something wrong, and you rationalize. So at the time, it was clear that I liked to be liked. Am I making sense?
Yes.
So I would go to provinces, I would go there, be available. Even when I've got flu, I will go there. And then come Friday, I'll come back with that flu and I'll say, I'll sleep the whole weekend. But my family is not a hotel. They are not a hospital, right? Zva would say to me, you are not present. Talking about, right? So the stuff that Dre was talking about, I was laughing that I could relate. She's like, you are not present. I couldn't understand what she was talking about, right? The time I could give to my kids, it was time, but like, and then Zva would say things like, you know, I saw Peter Slebush and Sim Sabalala drop off the kids at school. And Sabalala can drop off kids at school because there are people like me who do the work. Until I had an opportunity to go to Boston. And there was a lecture by Professor Clay Christensen who asked us the question, how will you measure your life? And he talked about the class that they had, an MBA class, where when they did their reunion, some people were not in touch with their families. Some didn't go because they were in jail, like the guy from Enron, because they're not invested in the family. The returns of the family are not immediate. So I went and read that book, and I was there in that room, and I knew I had failed. And at the time, I had rated myself as a very good husband and a very good father. But I was good in a bad bunch.
Yes.
So the standard was low. So now I had to do an introspection and admit I'd failed. And I was fortunate that the class invited me to be the class speaker at that Harvard graduation. So when I was writing, I wrote the speech that says towards a more balanced scorecard. Because we talk about the balanced scorecard in the work environment. What does it mean from a community? What does it mean from a family and all of that? So as I came to the graduation, I did the speech, then we went away on holiday. Then in the holiday, I could now say, hey, you were right. And then I started recalibrating my relationship with my children. Lise, who's the oldest, suffered more because in that time, I didn't spend as much time with her as I should have. I'm married to a lesser extent. Liam became the biggest beneficiary. So over the last 14 years, they were not asking me to work less harder. They were not asking me not to travel. They were saying, be conscious of our relationship. And so over these 14 years, what I enjoy the most is my birthdays. Because in my birthdays, I don't want gifts. I want a letter. But because they're digital, they send WhatsApps and messages. I keep those WhatsApps as my scorecard of what I've had to do to change my life. At the time, my life was not balanced. My finances were not balanced. You can imagine being a banker, but your finances are not balanced. My health was not balanced. My family life was not balanced. And that was failure, but I had to introspect. I can look back now at 13 year and say, or 14 years and say, if I had not made that decision, I might have lost my family. I might have lost my health or something like that. So there is failure in life. It's how you introspect and deal with it. Make sense? Okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lotang Mokwena. I'm a brand innovation and sustainability strategist. My one question is, as Black women, we're killing it in corporate. We're
Yes.
Black excellence, master's degree. We're hitting our KPIs. We're moving, from one project to another. But when it comes to compensation, it's like a conversation that no one wants to have. And when you bring it up, it's a do another course. I already have a PhD. Why am I doing another course? It's like keep building on what you have. And what I'm finding is it makes us feel like we're not adequate for the things that we're already winning at. We're already winning at leadership. So why are we not getting paid for where we're winning?
Sorry, my leader, before you answer, we've got 5 minutes and we've got 2 more questions.
Cool. So the gender pay gap is real. So when I was at Standard Bank, I started a journey, which I write about in my book, to look at issue of gender parity. It took us 5 years. In our team, we got to a point where we exceeded the target we had to get gender parity. It can't happen by osmosis. You have to be deliberate and get to relook at the numbers and see where there are deliberate distortions in your pay cycles. Sometimes it starts with what people accept when they move jobs, when they take on jobs that are bigger with less, where they're not negotiating. It also talks to performance-based pay so that people can make up for a lot of that. So I think that for me, organizations have to be deliberate to make sure that there's equity in pay, and there must be performance-based pay. I don't compromise on performance-based pay. I don't care whether you are liked or you're whatever. Show me the performance. If the performance is great, they'll be delivering. That was one of the controversial things Beki, when he said he's coming back to ESCOM, he said to Mteto, this thing of paying everybody across the board is not going to happen. We're going to pay on performance and we're going to use data to measure everybody and then do that. So my view is don't ever sell yourself short. Don't ever sell yourself short. And somebody who says, go get another degree, it's a false promise. I can tell you it's a false promise. If you want to study, study because you want to study, not because somebody says you're going to get this. I have lots of people who I ask, why are you doing these studies? No, because I'm going to get a pay. I said, how do you know? You are over-investing. Some people are over-investing in education and they don't get the return. So we must have those uncomfortable conversations as to why you're taking this course and why. And again, if the environment doesn't appreciate you, you've got to go find a place that appreciates you. Because that's the reality. And talent doesn't fight. Talent flees. Talent doesn't fight, it flees. Somebody who's foolish who thinks talent is going to be fighting with them, talent flees because they can't take their skill somewhere else. Okay? That's true.
Sorry, afternoon. Kotatso. So when you mentioned being a leader who serves, it triggered me a bit because I'm a daughter to a mom who serves, but I feel like she serves to her peril. So I just wonder, was there ever a time where you had to choose yourself over servicing others, and did you choose yourself, and were you okay with it?
Yeah. Can I have the last question? Oh,
Afternoon. Mine is very short. Congratulations on the acquisition of Bank Zero. My question is in relation to that. Can we expect a regulatory advocacy role from Lesaka and Bank Zero just to make sure that financial inclusion is accomplished and reflecting the realities of the underserved market, especially young leaders that want to participate from an entrepreneurial point of view? Thank you.
okay. So I would say that that story I was telling, that's when I needed to choose me. Because if I had not made that choice, I would look as this grade 7 leader, but I would be lonely. And she would have left me. Okay. She would have, she's left me. See. And as I always say to her is, if she were to meet a Ben 10 and leave me now, me, I'm on the phone. And the guy answers the phone and says, it's you again. I say, yes. He says, but you phoned yesterday. I said, yes, I wanted the PIN number for the ATM. Today, I'm phoning to ask which pills I must drink. Tomorrow, I'm on the phone to ask the code of the alarm because this is how we do things here. So I cannot have a situation where I lose my family, right? I didn't say it then. I know it now. And that's what made the biggest difference to me, all right? So I chose that and actually find that I will be more successful in the corporate world and I'm more comfortable with life. Imagine if I'd lost them. I'm now close to be one of City's clients. They start at 60. So I'm close to be one of City's clients. Imagine I don't have my family and I would have lost. So that was a big choice and decision in my life. And it's really made a difference. Okay. You do sacrifice a lot of things. You sacrifice friends, but in the end, it's not a sacrifice because you've just chosen to do certain things that make sense for you. Okay. So I would say that Ali spoke earlier where the South African banking system and the regulatory environment is designed in such a way that anything that's not a bank is excluded. For an example, you can't do payments without a banking partner, right? So that's why organizations like us will have partnerships or sponsorship arrangements. So we said this is not right. As has happened in Brazil, India, and others, you have to democratize payments. You have to open up the payment system to be more competitive, to enable underserved consumers and underserved merchants to be able to get, services. At Lesaka, we service, for example, spaza shops. We service taverns. We service spas and garages in townships that other people don't see. But we're doing it within the current regulatory framework. So we started mobilizing other fintechs. So we started with 8 fintechs and created this association of South African payment providers, ASAP. Now it's grown to 12 of the top fintechs in the country. And we've given strong, submissions to the regulator on how the regulatory environment has to change. So the Bank Zero issue is a broader disruption that we think will also add to that. But there are other things like Ali mentioned, like interchange, that must be challenged in this country to make it easier for people to be able to transact. As Ali said, everybody's bank account, but they get the bank account and withdraw all their money. Why? Because everywhere they go, they cannot use digital payment in their environment. So once we enable the digital infrastructure, people can be able, because what is money today? It's data. We go to a restaurant, right? And you take a card. All you're doing is you're giving that restaurant the data that says you've got the money, and they accept the data, you've got the money, done. Why can't it be done in a spaza? Why can't it be done to a tavern and all of that? And my boss is telling me my time is up.